Welcome to Making Space For, the podcast where we embark on a journey to simplify, organize, and prioritize our lives. I'm your host, Paige Rabin, and each episode will explore the art of intentional living, helping you make room for what truly matters. In a world filled with constant noise and distractions, it's easy to find ourselves surrounded by things that don't contribute to our happiness or well-being. Making Space For is your guide to decluttering not just your physical space, but also your mind and soul. We'll dive into practical tips on downsizing, right-sizing, and the transformative power of letting go. Whether you're starting a cluttered closet, pondering legacy planning, or seeking the elusive balance between work and self-care, this podcast is your sanctuary for inspiration and actionable insights. Join us as we feature experts, share personal stories, and explore the profound impact of intentional living. Together, we'll navigate the journey towards a simpler, more fulfilling life. One where you have more of what matters and less of what doesn't. So are you ready to make space for the life you've always wanted? Let's dive in. This is Making Space For. Well, before we dive into today's episode, a quick shout out to our flagship company, A Move Handled with Care. As Denver Metro's premier senior and specialty move management expert since 2007, we've mastered the art of downsizing, right-sizing, organizing, and every step in between. From packing and moving to unpacking and staging, our experienced staff represent all stages of life, offering a compassionate touch to what matters most to you. So, if you're looking to make a seamless transition while keeping what truly matters in focus, trust A Move Handled with Care. Visit us at amovehandledwithcare.com or on Facebook or LinkedIn to discover the difference. Let's continue making space for the life you deserve. Welcome back to another episode of the Making Space For podcast. I'm your host, Paige Rabin, and today we're thrilled to be joined by Kelly O'Connor, a distinguished elder care consultant with nearly 15 years of experience supporting older adults and their families. As a certified senior advisor, certified dementia practitioner, certified placement and referral specialist, and a professional life coach, Kelly brings a wealth of expertise to her work. Not only is Kelly one of the most respected practitioners in her field, both locally and nationally, but she's also a TEDx speaker on longevity and serves as the editor of the award-winning Certified Senior Advisor Journal. In this episode, Kelly shares her insights on navigating the elder care journey and making space for peace of mind, purpose, and meaningful connections. Whether you're caring for a loved one or planning your own future, you won't want to miss her invaluable perspective. This is Making Space For Elder Care Consulting. Well, thank you so much, Kelly, for joining us today. Super excited to talk to you. I've known you for many years, and I know you even had some journey before that. But for those who don't know who you are in the Denver area, they're definitely under a rock in the senior space. But tell us just a little bit about who you are and kind of what your journey is, and all the different hats that you've worn in the senior world.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much for having me on your show. I'm so happy to be here talking about older adults and how much I love this industry is one of my favorite things to do. And my journey started out as a hospice volunteer. And for those people that are not familiar with hospice, in order to become a volunteer, you go through professional training in order to be able to sit and hold vigil with a family and support someone who is in the transitional stage of life. And it was such an honor. And someone sort of tapped me on the shoulder and said, you've really got a knack for this. And so I just dove headfirst into the industry. And I worked in senior living for 4 years. And then I had my own agency for another 5 years. And then I've been doing elder care consulting here for the last few years, and then working on a trade journal with the Society of Certified Senior Advisors. They have it's an award-winning publication. It's a beautiful printed magazine. And I've been the editor of that for almost 3 years now.
Wow. So you started in hospice, which is interesting, but as a volunteer. So did you just do it kind of as a, something that you had of interest? Did somebody invite you to do that? How did you stumble into hospice? I mean, that's quite a leap into elder care.
Well, it's quite a leap considering my previous career was in the fashion business and entertainment industry. So it was a huge leap. And I moved to Colorado. I really wanted a different lifestyle, and I had gotten a master's degree in psychology. and knew I wanted to do something in social services, something in coaching and consulting. I
Mm-hmm.
just didn't really know what that was. And I saw this as an opportunity. I saw hospice as an opportunity to really, jump into the industry. We had hospice care for my mother, who transitioned, passed away very early on in her life. And so I just sort of thought that was a bad time in my life. I didn't realize that it was leaving little breadcrumbs for me
Sure.
from my future life.
Yeah, I had I never really worked, as my, previous life as a music therapist. I got the privilege working in Alzheimer's and dementia care, to work alongside some of the hospice providers. And so they would pull me in every now and again to help with the family and, create music and things like that with them. And so that was I never went into the world of hospice, but I got to experience it for a little bit. And it's a very special way to I think kind of almost demystify a little bit, the end of life and how actually beautiful it can be and so much closure. I mean, if you're lucky enough to have that experience with your loved one, I think that's amazing. But yeah, then when I met you, you were doing senior placement. And so we would meet at networking events and things like that and help some of your clients transition into senior living and things like that. So and now you're kind of transitioning into this new phase, which I think is really neat. Kind of elder care consulting. I mean, for those who don't really know maybe what that is, tell me a little bit more, like as if, just kind of educating me on that service and kind of who would need this service.
Well, there's so much going on in our regular everyday lives. I mean, we are busier as a society than we've ever been before with raising children, with jobs, with extracurricular activities. There's a lot of people that have side hustles and side gigs, and then we're trying to get our workouts in and trying to see friends and have a social life as well. It's just such a busy life that all of us are living. And then all of a sudden, when one of our loved ones has a crisis in the middle of all that,
Hmm.
it's like, a drop in the middle of the lake, and it just sends ripples throughout the entire family system. And so, what I do is I come in and help families during that time of crisis. So, during that time when it's like, oh my gosh, everything just hit the fan. What do
Hmm.
we do now?
Right.
Where do we go? Who do we trust? What's the first thing we need to focus on? And then, just mentally and emotionally, like, oh my gosh, how do I prepare myself to serve as power of attorney or a support system for someone who's going through a crisis and a change? And for me, it is I I love it when I get a phone call from someone, because that means I get to help them, but
Hmm.
I understand immediately what they're going through as a family and really recognize this is an opportunity to really offer that sacred support along the way, but also that education where they can make those informed decisions that they need to make in order to have the process go as smoothly as possible.
Right. And I mean, I would imagine, all the years that you've been doing this as well as us, like our one of our goals is to build a network of people because each move we do, each situation we come across, there's always some nuanced, thing that they need or service, and you don't know what you don't know. And so you and I and all the different people in this world have kind of just spent time cultivating, vetted professionals and, who to ask the questions to. We don't have to be the experts. We figure out who is the expert. And like you said, your expertise is to find the timeline of that. So how do I set that up in a, timely fashion to be able to execute whatever needs to be done? And you're meeting people probably in crisis, like you said. So they're not thinking clearly. They don't know. They don't make as, sound decisions and things like that. So you really kind of help, and I'm sure just really rely on your network of people that are the experts in what they're into.
Yeah, it is one of those things where during the crisis, you have to have people that you can rely on and trust. And
Hmm.
that's what my phone has, personal cell phones and business cell phone numbers. And when it's a crisis, I'm not afraid to use that and to say, my family needs help now. And to be able to, call someone who I know will respond at the very first possible time. It's so much better than having to go on to Google and search and
Yes.
research and reviews and read through and then send an email or make a phone call, wait for a return phone. I mean, all of that
Hmm.
um, time is saved by working
Yes.
with an elder care consultant like myself or a professional like a Move Handled with Care, because you have so many resources there that you can call on the spot as well.
Yeah. And if we don't know, somebody's like, oh, how do I do this? It's like, well, that's not for us, but I guarantee you the cascade will happen. We just need to get you in front of the right person and the cascade will hit us again. And that is one thing. I mean, you and I were just at a networking event a few weeks ago, and there was a gal talking about just, how Medicaid works. And it's not something that when you're younger, you're considering. You're not thinking about those things. And she started talking, and I just thought, oh my goodness, like how overwhelming. And so many people have a misnomer about even little things like that, like healthcare coverage and this and that. And so, I can imagine that just being super daunting for families, and being able to have somebody that you can call and who's going to know what to do and in what order and that sort of thing. I feel like super invaluable service that you provide.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. And like I said, it's such a privilege. When I get a phone call, I get so excited because I know it's where I get to, jump in, put my cape on, come in and help the family as best I can. And, the satisfaction that when the transition or the crisis is over, that we can really look each other in the eye and just say, wow, as a team, we did a great job. And I
Yeah.
think that's what people are so afraid of, is they're so afraid of making mistakes. We all
Yeah.
are.
Yeah.
And especially in such a critical time when you have a vulnerable person who
And on
needs you to.
behalf of someone else. Exactly. Yeah. It's not
Exactly.
your life, it's their life. And what's the best decision for them? And sometimes you're not sure. Yeah. 100%.
Exactly. And to be able to make really confident decisions about what you need to do, when you need to do it, and who's going to help you through the process is just really it allows people a lot of freedom that they otherwise would not have.
And then you wear another hat, which I love. This whole idea of it is that I mean, so that's in crisis mode, but then you're also doing this other really cool thing when not in crisis mode, but people who are jumping off maybe into retirement, or they're jumping off into maybe starting their life without a spouse, or some big event, life change has happened. And they're like, okay, well, then I'm not in crisis, but how do I build what's left of my legacy? And so, tell me a little bit more about like your life coaching stuff, because I feel like they kind of run in tandem together.
Yes, well, I was really fortunate to be able to build and sell my company a few years ago. And then I thought, okay, what am I going to do? I can do my elder care consulting. But really, what I found is through all of these years working with older adults, that there is a time when people start thinking about later life. And whether that's prompted through the loss of a spouse or retirement or maybe loss of a dear friend, and realizing that I might be next here,
Hmm.
and what do I need to do to make sure that my wishes are carried out. Those are the kind of conversations I'm having with people through a life coaching program. And it's been so fun because older adults, are not familiar with life coaches. A lot
Hmm.
of people still aren't familiar with life coaches. But I have a real niche in this later life time period that I'm able to bring all of my resources, all of my ideas, my experience to the conversation, and really encouraging people to live their absolute best life. I mean, we only have, that we know of, one life, and so why don't we maximize the life that we have here?
Yeah. It really interesting, and I feel like it's becoming more popular probably in the younger generation, but the older generation just doesn't really, they're not the podcast listeners necessarily, or all the different things that are kind of those educational pieces and nuggets that people are picking up. And so I feel like you pick up where that leaves off a bit, and kind of closing the gaps and getting them really thinking about it, because we say all the time in our line of business, even just for moving, is when you have time you have options. And I
Mhm.
think the same thing. Like, we look at it in the sense of like, well, if you ever want to downsize and move out of your home, you need if you want options, if you want to pursue a sale, if you want to do whatever is, you need some time for that. And you want to be able to pick and choose and interview your vendors. If you wait for a crisis, it's no longer, you have that luxury. And so I love that you're helping people think forward, and maybe even, are you tackling some of these things that you would do in a crisis mode only now over time? Is that kind of what your focus is?
Absolutely. There's a gentleman that I've been working with over a couple of months, and a lot was working with him on his self-worth, because
Mm,
so much of his self-worth was tied into his business.
Mm,
and to his profession. And so, what do you do as a retired person, and how do you contribute? And when your only worth that you've ever seen has been through the production and productivity that you've contributed in a work environment, what do you do when you have extra free time?
right.
I worked with another person who had a lot of regret about how they raised their children. And they felt like it really had an impact on the children and the children's lives and now the grandchildren. And so we worked a lot with, regret and how do we rectify a situation today? Is it possible? What conversations did we need to have? And it was really just such a beautiful experience. And I
Good.
do a lot of caregiving too, because so many people find themselves, retired, but then all of a sudden they're thrust in the caregiving
Yeah.
mode. And what do we do? And it's like, wait a minute, I was planning on going to cruises, going to Europe, doing all these things, but now I have someone that I
Right.
need to care for. How do I balance my life with their life and make sure that, both of us are taken care of?
Yeah, absolutely. And we're the third party. We step in where the emotion doesn't live for us. And I think that's always like the sweet spot again for us too, is that we get to step in, and it's, some people can be self-conscious of this or that or whatever. And we're like, no, like we've seen it all, we've navigated it all. And I'm not emotionally attached to your things. You're not emotionally attached to their situation, and can look at it objectively and help them work through, that process.
And what I like about what you offer and having someone with me with some experience in the industry is that we've done it thousands of
Yeah.
times. And so we've developed our own system, but we've also seen a lot of things that have failed before.
Hmm.
And
Yes.
so we can help our clients, mitigate those failures and put in some, either really good habits, really good strategies, some tactics, all of those things to really make their move successful. And that's what I found over time, that there's this cumulative effect. If you'll trust us,
Hmm.
we'll make sure that you'll get to where you
Yeah.
want to be, whether it's physically or emotionally.
Yeah, because every move is not the same, but it is. It's the same structure and overarching issues and things. And so, yeah, when you've done it thousands of times, nothing really, I mean, yeah, there's kinks here and there and special nuances to this and this building that you're going into, but overarchingly, it's the same process. And like you said, we've developed this over time to be able to pivot when we need to be able to, again, rely on our resources. We're constantly out in the community meeting with people, building that resource list, and learning from other people, because sometimes you never know what you don't know and how it can help you make your business better and your approach better, and things like that. So, yeah, helping people understand, kind of the value of the service that they're getting.
Yes. And I tell people all the time that, they say, oh, I'm not going to move for 2 to 3 years to
Hmm.
senior living. And I say, two to
Great.
three years, you need to get going now.
Yeah, great. And now
This
you
is the
jump on
time.
it.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. This is the time to start moving. So it
Yeah,
doesn't have to be a crisis. So you can take little chunks, little nuggets, little pieces at a time, and make sure you're slowly checking things off the list instead of having this, really harried, crazy time when everyone's in a frenzy and trying to
hmm,
make good decisions in the process. It's just hard.
yeah,
And it doesn't have to be that way. It can be really planned well and thought out well when you have people that can support you in doing that.
for sure. Okay, so one other really cool thing that I think you've done, I'm a little jealous, and I don't know how you got even into the process, but you did a TED Talk. Super cool. I don't know how that comes to be. I don't know, how did somebody pick you? Did you apply? Like, how did that go? And
You apply, yes.
okay, okay.
And I worked with a coach who understands the TED format
Hmm.
and understands how each one of the individual TEDx cities curates its own events. And
Okay.
so I learned a little bit about the strategy and how to do that. And typically it takes, 80 to 100 pitches before you get booked in one of the engagements, and it may not be in your own town. I was really fortunate. I sent out about 25 or 30, but applications, but I also got booked in my hometown in
Oh,
Denver. And
cool.
I was so excited because a lot of my friends got to come and support me. So I felt really comfortable up on stage and in front of the cameras. It was really great. And the talk was on longevity. And it was basically talking about retirement, how, many people retired, at 55, 60, 65 in days past. And then, within 10 years, they were dead.
Hmm.
And what we're having now is we have people that are retiring in their 60s, but they're not passing away until they're in their 90s, some
Right.
people in their 100s. So there's this new 30-year period of life that exists that this generation, in the TED Talk, I called them social pioneers, that they're trailblazing this way for us. And it's never been existed before in human history. And so that's one reason why I just love working with older adults, especially those ones that understand that they really have an opportunity to maximize their experience and maximize their time here on the planet.
Well, and you kind of hit that on the head that things have changed and evolved even, in my lifetime. I remember when my grandparents, when I was, younger, visiting them in what I would consider a nursing home. There's that nursing home mentality of, this is where I go to die, and it's terrible and it smells bad and this and that. And, now I'm lucky enough to go into some of these senior living communities that are amazing resort style living. And a place that I would want to be even at my age. I'm like, they have wine tastings and painting and gardening clubs and things like that. And I'm just like, how cool has this change been in our world?
Yeah, it's been really great to see. And, as an industry, the assisted living industry is about 50 years old. And so, there's been plenty of time to really start to see where we need to improve, what we need to do. And as the boomers are aging, they're really demanding a higher experience and a high level of engagement. And so that's the reason why, the old nursing home
Yeah,
model just isn't working
it
anymore.
isn't.
And people want something different. They want more, and it's more lifestyle with care added onto it instead of leading with care. And then maybe we'll help out with lifestyle.
Right, exactly. And the services that people are looking for are more to enhance their life, like you're saying. It's a lifestyle thing. And so the DIY nature of that generation and even my parents' generation, it's so much of that is pride in doing it yourself. And now I think people are treating themselves and they're realizing like I don't need to work that hard. And I mean, I guess maybe in a physical sense or whatever that might be, they're realizing that they can enjoy the experience when they get help. And so I guess that lends itself well to your business and ours, and the fact that we allow them to enjoy the process. We did a podcast episode with some folks that were just traditional residential, and they were talking about how they were able to still work and they were able to enjoy the process, and they weren't arguing and bickering because they were doing it all themselves. And I think there is that point of it. Like people are it sounds kind of crazy, but they're able to then enjoy the experience. So probably working with you, they're able to enjoy this next chapter versus being afraid of it,
Yes.
and feeling like there's more options for things to do and engage with.
Yeah, and I had a dear friend. He's in his 70s and is moving to senior living now. And we had a long sit down conversation. He likes to think he's a cool guy, and he's got, younger friends and, a wide network of people. And he has a beautiful home in a beautiful neighborhood, but it's just become too much for him to take care of.
Hmm.
And what I really had a heart to heart with him, and I said, where would you rather spend your energy? Do you want to
Yes.
spend your energy cleaning and maintaining your home, preparing your meals, shopping for groceries, going to and from doctor's appointments on your own without, someone escorting you there? Like it takes so much energy to manage life. We talked about that at the beginning. Life has gotten really big and really complex. And I said, what if you had all of the things taken care of that senior living provides for you? You
Hmm.
had meals and socialization and engagement opportunities, and you didn't have to shovel snow on your drive or try to
I
find
wish we were
someone to
just
do
talking
it at
about
the
that. Yeah, we
the
got
right
20 plus
time.
inches.
Yes, and it's so funny because a lot of his younger friends are saying the same thing that you
Yeah.
said. It's
Hmm.
like, this is really nice. And the fact that you have housekeeping and they're going to change your sheets. Also, if you set out your sheets, they'll make sure that they're
Yeah.
changed. They'll take out your garbage. They'll make sure that, your apartment is nice and tidy and you'll have meals prepared for you. I mean, it really is a pretty sweet gig.
Well, and the socialization part, if we learned nothing during COVID, is that, we are made for human connection, and to be with other people. And I think that's one of my favorite parts of our job is most people we move have a friend or 20 and wherever we're moving them to. And I think what an amazing thing, to go with your friends. And then when you do maybe lose your spouse or your health does decline, you're in a place where you can seek that connection and have that support kind of built in versus trying to break into it after. And I feel like so many people are delaying the inevitable. I'm sure in your line of work too. Like, I mean, I would think that's probably one of the biggest things you combat is the denial, of kind of their situation and what's really holding them back.
Yes, so much of it is fear of the unknown and then fear of the known. People are really afraid if they move to senior living that the next step is dying. They don't realize they can have many years in senior living really thriving and really maximizing the time that they have left. And I think that's one of the beautiful things that when people start to go to visit, I always encourage them, go visit, have a meal there, go to an activity, meet all the key people. Like, really, it's more than just a building and an apartment that you're renting. Really get to know what is that
Yeah.
community and what is that network about. And you'll see, if you don't already know someone who lives there,
Hmm.
you'll meet a lot of really great people that are celebrating, their new life. And for the folks that need care, the fact that we have such a great workforce here in Denver. We're struggling with employees, but the people that are dedicated to senior living, I've seen amazing people in lots of different communities. They're really doing a good job to support older adults. They see it as a sacred privilege to do the work that they're doing.
So, elder care consulting, is it just you? Is it a network of people? Like, is this something people can find in anywhere that they live, or how does that look for your new world here?
Yes, so there are people out there that do very similar work that I do. Some may be called a geriatric care manager, an aging life care professional. Some may be called a retirement coach. You could see it under a lot of different names.
Hmm.
Right now, it is an unlicensed industry, so anyone can hang a shingle. So I always encourage people to do some work and get some, do a little bit of research and make sure that you're getting referrals from someone who has been successful with a family that you already know. I
Hmm.
think that's one of the biggest things that people have found is when you know that a family has been successful with someone, make sure and that they're at the top of the list in your interview process.
Yeah. And how do people, is this a service that is a private pay service? Is this something that
It
is
is.
okay?
Yep, it's all private pay. So Medicare does not cover it. Medicaid does not cover it. We have some wonderful people that are lobbying for care services to be covered. And you start to see some insurance companies now will have a care manager inside their office. So they're doing a little bit of care management
Hmm.
inside the insurance offices. And like I said, there's a lot of people that are really advocating for our work to be covered by insurance.
Yeah, I think that would be amazing. Wouldn't it be great if people could just get the services they need and the support? I, wish that for everyone and always. As you kind of look to the future, what are your visions for elder care, for Kind of what do you see, maybe even trends or things that you wish would be in the elder care space?
Well, the one thing that I see is that a lot of people are jumping into our space. So we have a lot of new practitioners, new business ideas, new technologies, um, new partnerships, new alliances. So there's a lot of attention in our industry right now. And what I think is that people are having really important conversations and trying to figure out how do we all work together in
Hmm.
concert with each other, and how do we truly support older adults. I was just in a meeting yesterday and we were talking about digital equity. How many people in the United States still don't have access to the internet or
Yeah,
reliable internet over time? So how are you supposed to go onto an online portal? How are you
right.
supposed to do web research? There's a lot of conversations like that are happening to make sure that access to care and access to information is available for all older adults. So it's an exciting industry. Like I said, I was in the fashion entertainment industry for so many years. And my friends were like, "What are you doing working with older adults? Like, that is no fun." But I tell you, it is so exciting right now to see people that are making strategic differences in the lives of older adults. It's one by one. And you see a lot of people will go through their own family experience and then they're jumping into the industry
Yeah.
because they realize what's broken.
Hmm.
And, with every system, you're going to find a hiccup here and there. And
Right.
so we have really smart people that are coming in to help us smooth through some of those processes.
And I would definitely say that there's this intergenerational gap, and I feel like that gap is somewhat closing. The fear around older adults and the things that we used to think. And once I mean, even my own experiences, when you start to you see the history of your area, the history of your culture, the history of these stories that you hear, like they are literally the walking talking history. And what a pleasure and a joy it is to be able to experience it. And I think, we get invited into sacred space every day,
Yeah.
to go into somebody's home, anyone's home. It's where you eat and drink and entertain and, relax and recover. And so, we get to learn all the really cool stuff. And I mean, it's not even just from furniture, but antiques and things and the stories behind them. And I feel like it's such a privilege. And I'm hoping, and I know specifically for my kids, they get forced whether they like to or not to experience it. But I think that intergenerational and just spending time with older adults and learning what we can. I mean, my goodness, I was just talking to my kids the other day about we didn't have, how I would send notes to my friends because there was no such thing as text messaging. Like you couldn't text your friends. You would, illegally write a note and shove it in their locker kind of thing. And, that's only my generation and then how much farther back and that sort of thing too. So that's definitely something like you're saying, people are jumping into it. And I think the age gap is getting bigger. And I think that's a good thing. From the young folks to the older folks. We did a podcast with a technology group, and she was saying that their trainers are in their 20s and their 30s. And I'm like, fantastic. Like, I love that gap is closing and that we're spending time and sharing our level, like you said, sharing our level of expertise in that technology space, because talk about daunting. Technology can be super daunting, but yeah, super, super cool.
Yeah, and I started my caregiving journey in my 20s, um, formally taking care of my mom, but informally, we had two grandmothers who lived with us growing up, and there's been some significant research that shows how many younger people are already caring for older adults, that they're either living together or they have responsibilities after school to go and provide care for their older loved ones. And so, we're seeing a huge trend in younger caregivers right now. And luckily, there's some amazing organizations that are doing things to unite them so they can have conversations about what do we do. And, I feel like I'm a grown up in the middle of this, really tough situation. And also to give them the training and skills that they need to be able to perform their tasks with greater skill. So
Great.
it's like I said, it's a really exciting time to be in the aging services industry, and one family at a time, just like you guys,
Yep.
we get to make a difference.
Absolutely. Well, my final question for you is the title of our podcast is the Making Space for. And so we ask all of our guests, what is either using your services or maybe an idea that you have that helps people create space for the things that really matter?
Well, the things that really matter are the connection that we have with our loved ones. And, I think in any crisis, that's what you'll discover. So time is our most precious thing. And any time that I can make more time for a family where they can spend time with their loved ones or where they can just take a nap, in the middle of the caregiving journey. I mean, time is really making space for time, I think is the most important thing. And the fact that I can save them, 3 to 5 hours many times researching one provider, and
Yeah,
I've got 5 different providers in 5 different areas, I'm saving them a good 20 hours a week. In shortening their journey to find really great people to help them.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for coming and sharing with us today. Hopefully, people will check out your TED Talk. I'll put a link of all that stuff and hopefully reach out to use your services, whether it's with you or wherever they are in the country listening. That they'll create that space for themselves. So I appreciate you coming and sharing with us today.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Paige. I love what you guys do. I've been a fan of your company for many, many, many years, and
Thank you.
really looking forward to seeing what you guys are doing in the future too.
Thank you. We appreciate it. That wraps up another inspiring episode of the Making Space for podcast. A huge thank you to our incredible guest and to you, our cherished listeners. Your journey to intentional living begins with each small step, and we're honored to be a part of it. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please consider liking, subscribing, and rating our podcast on your favorite platform. Before we part ways, a friendly reminder, if you're embarking on a move or seeking expert guidance in downsizing, remember a move handled with care in Denver. With over 15 years of experience in senior and specialty move management, we're here to transform your transition into a seamless, stress-free experience. Visit amovehandledwithcare.com for more information, and let's continue making space for the life you've always wanted. Until next time, stay inspired, stay intentional, and keep making space for what matters most.